For people like me, games aren't an escape from reality. They're one of the only places where my fragmented sense of self actually feels whole. Hey there, friends. I hope you're doing well. I'm Laura, aka Weird Barbie, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about something really personal, something I've spent years trying to understand about myself. And that's the fact that I kind of feel like I live between two different worlds. There's the physical world, the tangible one, plants, animals, art, music, organizing, taking care of things with my hands, that kind of world. And then there's the digital world, the games I disappear into, the characters I emotionally bond with, universes that stop feeling fictional and start feeling like really emotionally tangible. And I think a huge part of why games affects me so deeply comes from the fact that I do have borderline personality disorder, ADHD, and autism. Because those things completely change the way I experience identity, emotion, attachment, and immersion, for me, games are not just entertainment. They're emotional spaces. They're a form of identity. Sometimes they can even be a safe space. So over time, I've realized that a lot of my life is spent moving back and forth between these two worlds, trying to regulate myself emotionally. So today I want to talk about what BPD actually is, how ADHD and autism shape the way I play games, why I bond with fictional characters so intensely, and why role-playing games in particular feel less like playing a character and more like temporarily becoming someone else. One thing I've noticed about myself as I've gotten older is that I sort of naturally split my life into two completely different modes. The first one is like the physical mode. That's the whole part of my life where I need things to feel tangible and sensory based. So I draw or color, write, listen to music, water my plants, crochet, clean my fish tank. I have a flightless fruit fly colony that I breed and tend to feed my arboreal tree frog because he's so little and small. So I do that. And all those activities like calm me down in a very specific way. There's something very grounding about physically interacting with your environment, and for me that's super important. Like actually touching things, maintaining things, creating things. And I think a lot of that is the autism, although it's sometimes hard to tell what thing is being caused by what, like mental conditions. So because autistic people often regulate emotionally through physical routines, sensory experiences, repetition, textures, and structured environments. When my brain feels overloaded, overwhelmed, fragmented, or emotionally chaotic, physical tasks help pull me back into reality. They help me reconnect my body and my surroundings. And I think that's important because the other world I live in is an incredibly emotionally intense one. The second world or mode that I kind of exist in is sort of like gaming mode, is what I call it. It's like when I hyperfixate on a game, it becomes everything. Nothing casual about it, nothing normal about it. Like, I obsess. I wake up thinking about it, I dream about it, I play it for hours every day, I listen to the soundtrack constantly, I watch lore videos, I think about the characters while doing other things, I write fan fiction. Like, the game becomes almost like a second life running parallel to my real one. And ADHD plays a huge role in this. I know that. Because ADHD isn't really a lack of focus, it's inconsistent hyperfocus. So if my brain connects with something emotionally and mentally, I can focus on it for absurd amounts of time. But if a game doesn't click, and I will bounce off it like immediately. And sometimes I think people think that means I didn't give a game a chance, so to say, because I didn't spend this much time or that much time on it. But it's not really a choice for me. Sometimes my brain just refuses to attach to something. Like, I'll stare at the menu screen, feeling absolutely nothing, while my brain desperately tries to escape. And that's kind of where it gets complicated, because I can't always tell which disorder is causing what. Like, sometimes it's ADHD needing different form of stimulation, but sometimes it's the autism rejecting something that doesn't fit my niche interests or desired patterns. Sometimes it's the BPD emotionally disconnecting me from something quite suddenly. So as I get older, I'm getting better at analyzing myself, but there's still so much overlap between all these different things that it's hard to separate them cleanly. They do all blend together into one really strange way of experiencing the world. And I think the biggest piece people need to understand to really understand this video is BPD and what that is. Because borderline personality disorder is one of the most misunderstood disorders out there. BPD is heavily tied to emotional regulation, identity instability, attachment issues, fear of abandonment, and extremely intense emotional responses. And when I say intense, I mean like intense. People with BPD don't just feel emotions strongly. We experience emotions at a level that can genuinely become physically painful. Something mildly upsetting to another person can feel emotionally and physically catastrophic to somebody with BPD. And it's not because we're being dramatic, but because our nervous systems are hyperactive and they react with overwhelming intensity before logic has time to catch up. So it's sort of like being struck by lightning every time you switch emotions. It's the best way I can describe it. And one of the hardest parts of BPD is that emotions don't feel temporary ever. Like, once you're inside them, they feel absolute. If I'm sad, sadness becomes my entire reality. If I'm rejected by someone, it feels like permanent abandonment. If I'm emotionally attached to something, that attachment can become overwhelming to the point of obsession. And that intensity changes the way I experience gaming completely. Okay, so I wanted to talk also about like why fictional characters feel so real to me. Because my brain doesn't fully separate emotional attachment to fictional characters from emotional attachment to real people. Like, I know fictional characters aren't real, I'm not an idiot, but emotionally, the attachment, it, like, absolutely is real. When I connect with a character, my brain treats that emotional bond as meaningful and genuine, and it puts it as a priority. And because BPD often causes people to form attachments very intensely, I don't just like characters, like, I latch onto them. Some of the characters I've latched onto over the years include, but are not limited to, Geralt from The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Desarde from Greedfall, Cliff from Crimson Desert, Griffith from Berserk, Lestat from Interview with the Vampire, Yason from I Know Kusabi, Jean-Claude from Anita Blake, Vampire Hunter. So characters like that don't just resonate with me because I think they're cool. They feel emotionally stabilizing because I connect to their trauma or a specific personality trait a lot of the time. And I think that ties directly into another major part of BPD, which is the fragmented identity. One of the hardest things to explain about BPD is the fragmented sense of self. So, most people experience their personality as a combination of all their different emotional states at once. But for me and people with BPD like me, emotions can be completely dominating and overwhelming. So like whichever emotional state is strongest temporarily becomes my entire identity, and each one is different. it's almost like having multiple personalities, but it's not quite there. Hence the name borderline personality disorder. It's not quite there, but it is very, I would say, debilitating at times. Like if I'm angry, then the angry version of me is like takes over. If I'm sad, the sad version of me takes over. But if I'm creatively inspired, it works the same way too, in that suddenly I feel like I'm a completely different version of myself that can just do anything I set my mind to. So it works both ways, like both positively and negatively. It feels less like one stable self and more like multiple emotional selves fighting for control constantly. Like, I always think about it like they're all in a minivan and they're like struggling, fighting, trying to decide who's driving and then who's in the front seat, because it kind of works like that, where I'll have like the dominant emotion might be anger, but then I also have like loneliness or sadness or something in the passenger seat. So it's like the next adjacent emotion that I can feel, kind of, is like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it just kind of feels like a minivan. I don't know. Role-playing games, I want to say, they give me a really safe way to organize all of that chaos temporarily, because when I play a strongly defined protagonist, I get to settle into one coherent identity for a while. So I can adopt Geralt's calmness, or Desarde's flair for diplomacy, Cliff's determination, Griffith's ambition. I can inhabit those personalities temporarily, not in like a delusional way, like not literally inhabit them, but like emotionally for a little while, and I stop feeling fragmented because they provide like a structure to cling to. Like, I become one person, even if that person isn't technically me. That sounds crazy, I know, but there's got to be somebody else out there who experiences things like this. Like, because I know there's like less than 1%, I think, of the population has BPD, so it's a really uncommon disorder. But I know there's got to be people out there who experience games and media this way, because games and fictional media often gives me like an emotional piece of driftwood to cling to in a sea of emotion, and it can be really intense sometimes, especially because another thing that BPD affects is the way that I engage with things emotionally over time. So people with BPD often struggle with black and white thinking, which is sometimes called splitting. Something is either amazing or terrible, safe or completely 100% unsafe. I'm either obsessed or indifferent with a lot of things, and gaming obviously becomes tied into that too. I'll become completely obsessed with a game or series for weeks or months, sometimes years, and then suddenly something shifts emotionally. Maybe one bad experience, disappointing story moment, an emotional trigger can happen, and suddenly my brain completely disconnects from it. Not rationally, but emotionally. Sometimes I'll avoid games or series that I love because they become emotionally overwhelming, and that triggers fear, which triggers avoidance, and that triggers splitting as well. And that's kind of part of why I bounce so hard between the digital world and the physical world, because sometimes my brain needs emotional immersion, and other times it desperately needs sensory grounding to keep me like solid within reality, if that makes sense. So I guess most days my life is this constant movement between two different realities: the digital emotional world and like this physical sensory world. And I honestly think both are equally real to me, like both logically and emotionally. Not in the sense that I can't distinguish fantasy from reality, because I can, but emotionally, the experiences I have in games and from engaging with media leave a real impact on me. The comfort that I feel is real. The attachment is real. The grief is real. The inspiration is real. Games genuinely shape how I feel, think, regulate emotions, and even understand myself sometimes. And maybe that sounds unhealthy to some people, but to that I have to say, games and fiction have helped me survive periods of my life where I felt completely disconnected from myself. They gave me identities to explore, places to escape safely, characters to emotionally connect and trauma bond with, worlds that felt understandable when real life often didn't. So, yeah, that's kind of what gaming feels like for somebody like me who is living with BPD, ADHD, and autism, and a whole host of other fun things that I'm not even going to get into. But those are the main ones. So gaming for me is definitely not just a hobby. It's a form of emotional immersion, identity exploration, attachment therapy, sensory regulation, escapism, self-understanding. It's literally living between two worlds for me. And I think a lot more people experience that than we realize. If any of this resonated with you, I'd genuinely love to hear about your experiences down in the comments. Do games feel emotionally real to you too? Do you hyperfixate? Do you bounce between immersion and grounding the same way that I do? Because I know I'm definitely not alone in feeling this way. I can't be. Thank you all so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I appreciate you being here more than you could ever know. If you want more content like this, drop a like to let me know that this is something you'd like to see more of, and check out my channel. It's full of playlists to explore with other videos just like this. For really long-form content from me, you can check out The Campfire, a gaming podcast, which I co-host with Ember's Arcade. We cover weekly gaming news, tell you what we've been playing, and run a Game of the Month club with a bonus episode out at the end of each month. This month's game is Lost Ark, and you can expect new episodes to release every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts, or check out the link in the description. That's all for me today, guys. Take care of yourselves, and remember, stay weird, stay cozy, and keep leveling.